Hey, what's up? Welcome to Fathering Our Future. I'm Anthony Vandegrift. I'm not the perfect dad, but every day, just like you, I am trying to be better. I was not sure that I was going to get a fresh episode out to you this week. I was contemplating a replay, but I'm feeling better. I was out all last week. I'm not going to talk about it. It was just some sort of feverish flu type thing, I guess, but I've kicked it, and I'm getting this episode recorded just like I wanted to, and I'm getting it out to you. I am excited, though, because on May the 11th, this is going to be the drop of an episode, but it will not be the one that I'm about to tell you about. I'm going to sit down and interview Dr. Tim Elmore. He's a leadership expert. He's a generational expert, and that's going to be a good conversation because I think what we're going to tackle here, what I'm wanting to tackle, at least right now, and maybe I change it, I don't know, but the old adage of I've been there and I've done that. I understand. I can do it. I want to talk about how that is not a great mentality for us to have as dads when it comes to raising our kids because they're growing up in a different world. They're growing up with change all around. Anyway, I'm talking to Dr. Tim Elmore. And if you can do this quickly, this episode, you're listening to this, May the 4th, Star Wars Day? That's pretty cool. That was unintentional. May the 4th be with you today. But you're listening to this. If you know who Dr. Tim Elmore is, or you want to look him up real fast and see what he talks about, if you have any questions that you think I should ask, please send them to me. hello@fatheringourfuture.com. Send them to me as quickly as you can so that I can get my questions off to him. I'm going to send them today, the release of this episode, May the 4th. So if you can get them to me quickly, I would really appreciate that. Now, today I want to address a question that I think all parents have at some point and maybe continue to have as they raise their kids. And for dads, I think we have this maybe, and I'll say especially here, but that is, how do I get my kids to do what I want them to do? I think we all probably think about this. And I think part of this for us as dads, the struggle with this stems from maybe some misconceptions that we stepped into fatherhood with. If you're anything like me, we were raised to believe that the man was the leader, the authority, the dictator. What he said was going to happen. And so you step into the reality of everything as a father, and then you say things and they don't happen. And then you feel like you're the failure because you're not being viewed or respected as the authority. And often the response and the reaction is anger. You get mad because the system seems broken that you're a part of, and it doesn't appear to be that way for everybody else, and you don't know what the deal is, and you don't want to be the one broken person in your circle of friends or in your community. I just want to encourage you, one, to forget that whole mentality because that's not true. No one is perfect. I have a hard time listening to all the men who talk about I'm the leader, everybody knows it, everyone listens, everyone respects, all the time, every time, never does this ever happen. Anytime people use these words that encompass these eternal perspectives, every time, never, always, they're talking on a level of perfection that we cannot obtain, and it's not that way. Maybe it's that way a lot of the times. Cool. I feel like it's the same for me. But I'm never going to say always, every time, without fail, never, ever, any exception. When I hear people talk like that, I think there's something that they're not telling us because they're not perfect. They're not ascended on high, seated next to Jesus. So they got to be fudging the numbers somewhere. Anyway, I just want to encourage you. Whatever you grew up thinking, I'm not necessarily telling you to go and deconstruct it all, but I want you to understand it. I want you to validate it. Don't go searching for why am I right, because you'll just justify why you already believe the things that you believe. And I don't want you to just go and search why am I wrong, because then you might swing to the opposite end of the pendulum. I want you to what was the band? Was it 68 Special or something like that? They sang a song, and I think this is such great theological advice, and I think it's good advice for anything that you're trying to pursue in a knowledge base. hold on loosely, but don't let it go. And you probably know the song that I'm talking about. But I think this is really such a good piece of advice. Hold on to what you currently believe, but not so tightly that when you need to grab somewhere else, you're unable to because you just can't let go of what you've got. There have been plenty of things that I have thought because of how I was raised or because of what I was told, so many things that I no longer hold to. I no longer talk about everything the same way that I used to. I no longer believe all the things that I used to believe. But I didn't say, someone lied to me, everything has to be corrupted. I don't want you to do that. It is a slow and steady transition and turn. But you have to be intentional about saying, you know what? I've never even second guessed this idea in my head about being a dad and what it looks like to be a leader in my home. Maybe I should look into it. That's what I would encourage you to do. And I think that will help you across the board, and it will help you with our question today. But let's get to the question. How do I get my kids to do what I want them to do? Now, if you're on the edge of your seat hoping that there is some short and sweet answer, there's not. But I'm going to give you the practice that I think will help you achieve this most of the time. Not all the time, because all the extremes, they're fudging something somewhere. Most of the time, I think this will work, especially under one of the conditions that I'll talk about. That's the second point. But the first thing is you actually have to lead. You have to show your kids and display to your kids what it actually looks like. If you tell your kids to do things, but you don't do them yourself, if you ask your kids to do things that you're not willing to do, you can forget about it. You're going to find yourself constantly frustrated because to your kid, you're saying one thing, but you're doing another. And oftentimes our actions do speak louder than our words to our kids. They pick up so much of what they learn environmentally. By seeing you and watching you, they pattern their behaviors after that. They pattern what they do after what they see you do. And if you do nothing, that is often what you can expect from your kids. This is why I don't like the whole, you're a dad, you're a coach. Maybe in some point of your child's life in a particular context, maybe you can use the language. But overall, I just don't like it. When people say that as a dad, you're a coach, and they mean that throughout the whole scope of fatherhood, I just disagree entirely, because a coach is someone off of the field just calling out the shots who has the child for a season or a few, and then the player just has to do what the coach says, and they either get success or they don't, and it's all contingent upon the coach. That's not what fatherhood looks like. You're on the field with your children, especially as a Christian father. This is something that we're doing together, because the big thing that we're doing is discipleship, because we are Christians. We are followers of the way. And so we are pursuing Christ, and Christ has given us this humbling privilege and opportunity to disciple someone else, to bring them with us. So eventually our kids walk next to us on this journey that we call discipleship, because we have helped guide them and pull them that way. That's what we're doing. We're on the field with them. We're not just on the sideline. We're not just never exercising, but telling everyone what to do. We're not just calling out the drills. We are participating in this thing with our children. So if they don't ever see you do anything, don't expect them to do what you say. They're going to do what they see you do. My favorite house that we ever lived in, it had a laundry chute, and I'll just leave it at that. It was so cool in so many ways. But we lived in a wonderful neighborhood, and everyone liked to get out and walk. And there was one gentleman that I would run into all the time, Mr. Reggie. Love Mr. Reggie, miss Mr. Reggie. But Mr. Reggie had learned a few things through life. And he was the type of man who he appreciates the voices that he had in his life. And having learned something, he wants to be a voice into other people's life. So he's going to pour into people whether or not they're going to receive it, but he's going to pour it in so that they had the wisdom and they had the knowledge and they had the opportunity to go and make something better of themselves. And I so appreciate all the conversations that we were able to have. But one thing he used to always say is you can't just talk about it. You've got to be about it. And I think it's so true. You have got to walk the walk. You can't just talk the talk, but you have to walk it out. You have to be about what you claim and what you speak. This is what James talks about in his epistle. You can know what I believe. You can know what I'm about by looking at the things that I do. You will see my faith when you look at my works. So I think it is vitally important that you do not just simply tell your kids what to do, but that you display to them what that looks like. If they don't see you work, then they're not going to do it. And another thing, you have to remember that your kids are not your personal servants. If your whole struggle is, I can't get my kids to do what I want them to do, but what you're asking them to do is stupid, well, that's your fault. And a lot of times I think we can be guilty of asking our kids to do dumb things. Here's the rule. If what you're asking your kid to do doesn't benefit them either now or in the long term, it's probably dumb. And if you're asking them to do something dumb, more than likely it's something that caters to your convenience. And that's not what you're trying to do. That's not what a good leader does. A good leader goes and he gets the job done. He goes and he actually leads. He puts himself out there first. And if you're going to lead like Christ, you're going to turn right back around and then you're going to serve those that follow you. Yeah, leaders do a lot of work. Being a leader is tough, but that's what you sign up for when you become a father. So buckle up, Buttercup, if you weren't ready for this. There's a lot that you actually have to do. If you want your kids to do the things that you tell them to do, you're working 5 times as hard as they will ever have to work in your home because you're the leader, and that's what that ought to look like. So remember, they're not your personal servants. They're not doing the things that you want them to do because you don't want to do them. They're doing things because they're going to benefit your children. They're doing things because they have ownership in the house and they get to participate like an owner. You're giving them moments where they get to step into this vein of leadership so that they get years of experience and practice so that when they become mothers and fathers, they then have something to fall back on, this experience and this knowledge that you allowed them to be a part of when they were in your care. If it doesn't benefit them, you're asking your kids to do dumb things. Don't do that. Now, the other thing, yeah, you want to model it, you want to be consistent, but you got to be patient. That reminds me of a horrible song that my mother used to sing to my daughter JoJo because she would get upset. She was probably the most emotional of the girls, at least at this point anyway. We've got one yet to come, but I think she's going to be a monster and not cry as much. But she would just get so upset when something wasn't done right then. And my mom would sing a song to her and say, you gotta have patience. And this is something that probably needs to be an annoying anthem in the minds of all fathers. When it comes to raising your kids and getting them to do the things that you want them to do, you've got to have patience. Remember, they are developing and they are on a discipleship journey, and that takes time. We are all still learning. None of us have reached perfection. We all require more time to continue to grow and to get better. The same is true of our children. They need time. You're not going to tell them something once and then they're going to fully understand it. And I know when I was growing up, there were a lot of kids that I knew, their parents were like, I'm going to tell you once. That's just lazy. That's lazy parenting. And I know a lot of the old people who hear my stuff, they're like, this is watered down. It's not. This is just calling out some of the bad practices that used to exist. It wasn't all bad. I'm not trying to say that all of the grandparents and great-grandparents and even parents, the generations ahead of me, that they all did a terrible job. That's not even close to being the case. There are plenty of things that were done then that ought to still be done today, but there's a lot that was done, probably because of circumstance. I'm not going to excuse all of it, but there's sometimes reasons why we do what we do. There's some things that were just lazy. And telling your kid, I'm going to say this to you once, is lazy. And it's not even practical. It doesn't even make sense. It's like, why do you not just go to church one time and you've got it all figured out? You have to keep going. You have to keep reading the Bible. You have to keep praying from the time that you were little in Sunday school until the time that you die, hopefully at 100 plus years old. It is a journey that requires a lifetime to walk. Your kids are on the same journey. Your kids are learning the same way that you are. They need time. You have to be patient with them as you model things to them, as you kneel down on their level and you teach them things and you speak to them. You have to be willing to say it again. You have to be willing, when the lesson needs to be retaught, to reteach it. You have to be patient. You have to give them time. So the practice of getting your kids to do what you want them to do requires you, one, to not be lazy and to do things yourself, to show your kids what it looks like. And then it requires you to be patient, to take a pause, and to give your kids space to fail. Give them space to mess up. But be patient enough and allot enough time to them to where you step back in and you say, okay, let's try this again. Remember, here's what you were asked to do. Remember, here's how you do this. You give them time. You give them an example. And then, most of the time, when you ask your kid to do something, they're going to do it. Now, I'm going to take a brief moment here to testify. And I will tell you that I can't really come up with a time. And I know that I'm not a perfect dad. I say that at the beginning because I mean it, and I know it to be true. But on the spot, I cannot think of a time where I've asked my kid to do something, and eventually that they just never did it. They listen. They listen when I speak to them, when their mom speaks to them. They listen. They trust us. They know that we do things in the house. Oftentimes, they are asked to help us do things, not just go and do things by themselves. They are taught how to do things by example. And maybe they get distracted from time to time because they're kids, and that's totally normal. But when we say, hey, buddy, hey, sis, we asked you to do this. Oh, that's right. Sorry. And they get right to it. Most of the time, that's what it looks like. I don't have problems out in public with the kids losing their mind. I don't. If I had wood around here somewhere, I'd probably knock on it because it'll probably happen now that I said it on the podcast. But I honestly don't. One time with Frankie, when he was our only kid at Outback, that was nuts. And then one time with JoJo at Olive Garden, I can think of, but that ended in such a wonderful way. And that's why I think of it. I took her out calmly and slowly, and we went and we danced to the music in the parking lot and then sat her on the hood of the car, and she was the happiest person in the world. Everyone else came out and we're all smiling. My wife was like, well, what's happened here? Well, we had a party while you were in there eating. And so the point is, when you model things to your kids, they really learn. And when they see that you do things that you ask them to do, they trust you. And you build respect and integrity in the eyes of your children. And it creates a willingness for them to listen to you. And when you give them time and grace and patience, and they know that if I don't do this, I'm not going to get smacked around, I'm not going to get yelled at, and no one's going to get angry, my kids still feel disappointment. When they fail, they know they have failed. They don't need me to put salt in the wound. Anyway, if you want your kids to do the things that you ask them to do, model it and give them time. And just keep repeating that, and you'll get there. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your patience with us. I know personally in my life that I have made mistakes time and time again, and you have always been so patient with me and so faithful to just keep showing up and keep allowing me time and keep forgiving me and keep empowering me and continuing to stay with me. Lord, I pray that as fathers today, that we would model ourselves with our children in the same way that you have modeled yourself to us, that we would give time to our children, that we would be patient, that we would offer forgiveness and instruction and be faithful and offer grace. And I pray, Lord, that we would put footsteps for them to follow, as we are instructed to follow in your steps, because you have actually walked the path. You are the perfecter of our faith, but you are also the pioneer. You did it first. Lord, help us to take those first steps in the eyes of our kids so that they know where to walk. God, help us to be doers and help us to be patient and help us to be the fathers that our children need us to be. In Jesus' name, amen. One more time, I got Dr. Tim Elmore coming up on the podcast. Get your questions in May the 4th. If you have anything that you'd like me to ask him, send it my way. I'll review it and maybe it makes the cut. But if you have any other questions about fatherhood, you just need advice as a dad, I'm contemplating doing some free group dad coach calls. And maybe we'll do that. If you like the idea, let me know. I would appreciate the feedback on that. But anyway, if you need me, you can reach out to me, hello@fatheringourfuture.com. For now, thank you so much for being with me. This is Fathering Our Future. I'm Anthony Vandegrift, and I hope you will join me next time. Hey, one more time, I want to thank you for listening to Fathering Our Future. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, please do so wherever you listen and consider leaving a nice review because I would appreciate that. But if you're not connected to Fathering Our Future on social media, you can find it on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and there you're going to get some additional content on a more regular basis that you don't always get here on the podcast. Now, the last thing that I would like to ask of you is that you would consider becoming a financial partner of Fathering Our Future, because dads make a difference, and dads are not disposable. Dads are vital, and they are essential, and they are needed. And the impact that dads make doesn't just reside in the home, but it has a ripple effect that goes to churches and communities and culture. And I'm inviting you to be a part of equipping and empowering and educating dads to be the dad that God has called them to be and that their children need them to be. You can become a financial partner with Fathering Our Future. It can be a one-time contribution, a monthly commitment, but by doing that, you play a direct role in impacting dads. You can check the link in the description below. You can pray about it. You can get on board. And I thank you in advance for becoming a part of Fathering Our Future in a special and a dynamic way. God bless you.